You're listening to The Flickcast, a pop culture podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and with me, Joe Dilworth. Joe, hello, sir. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. I had a lot of coffee this morning, so I feel like I always rush through the opening. I'm here with Joe. Let's do this. It's like, I gotta get going. We have a lot to talk about, and our shows have been running long, extremely long. Like last week was a huge, massive, gigantic episode. And
yes, I mean, we could get through it and go, WandaVision, loved it. This, loved it. Okay, thank you.
That's true. We're gonna have to get deeper into WandaVision, the final episode, series finale. They're calling it, ostensibly, I guess.
Yes.
We'll have to get into that, and there's a couple other things we can talk about. But I think the most in depth, we'll probably get into WandaVision. But I'm just trying to make, if we can, let's try not to make this episode an hour and a half like last week. Although, again, huge, massive show.
Oh yeah, I think there's a few things to unpack. Is that what the kids say nowadays?
Unpack, sure. I'm just trying to make more innuendo and dick jokes like last week.
Oh yes, because that was fun.
That was very effective. That's good. I wouldn't say good radio, but this is not really radio, so I don't know. What is this? It's good podcasting. Dick jokes are all about what podcasting is all about, for sure.
Don't they say you want to have some kind of edge or some kind of controversy that always gets you?
Sure.
The ear. I was going to say the eyes, but the ears, I guess.
The ear hole.
Which kind of makes me. It kind of makes me sound a little serial killer-ish. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
That's true. Well, eventually there'll be eyes because we're going to do this on video at some point, and people are going to be able to watch us.
I'm excited about that.
I don't know if I'm excited about that. Although I am on camera more on Sundays with Twitch for Dungeons and Dragons, which is fun. And so before I forget, we have a Patreon.
Oh, yes.
Patreon.com/TheFlickcast. And find us on the socials. Find us on all the places you find podcasts. And hit us up. Give us comments. And feel free to rate the show on iTunes, especially. Or I'm sorry, Apple Podcast now it's called. Feel free to rate the show. And give it a good rating if you can, even though you haven't heard it yet. It's going to be great. I can tell you right now.
Yeah, trust us. This is going to be the best episode yet.
The best episode yet. So, all right. So speaking...
Until next week.
Until next week. All right, so speaking of managing expectations, let's talk about WandaVision. Yes. Hey, I'm nothing if not halfway decent at segues.
So here's the thing. I mean, I know that we made some grand predictions, not predictions, but maybe like theories of grand things. And
sure,
I'll say this: even though we did that, ultimately in the back of my head, I'm like, they're going to tell the story they want to tell. And they're going to have a satisfying ending to this story. If we get any of these other things we're talking about, cool. And if not, I wasn't much unlike many other people on the internet. I was not prepared to eviscerate the show because it didn't pan out all of my theories. So,
well, yeah, they had to know that there was going to be backlash, or there was going to be comments, there was going to be all kinds of stuff. But yeah, there's been a lot of what shall we say, extreme reactions to the finale. Some people were like, yeah, it's exactly what I thought it was. And other people, more vocal in some ways, are like, yeah, this was, they went led us down this path and it wasn't right. And why didn't you end the show the way I wanted to? Like you said, it's like, you know what, man, just enjoy the show for what it was. The fact that we got this show at all, that's what I was trying to say. It's like, I was wrong about a lot of the things I thought was going to happen, or thought were going to happen.
Oh yeah, me too.
But that's okay. That was the fun part. And I didn't necessarily expect all of that to come true, but I was happy that it was a show that was worth discussing at all.
Yes. I think my biggest, the biggest thing I liked about it is it didn't exist as a show just to set up and spawn other things. Does it lead to other projects? Yeah, absolutely. But it still told a complete story in and of itself. It wasn't just, okay, so episode 3 is going to be where we set up the mutants. Episode 4 is going to be where we set up doctors. It was, here's a story. If some of these threads go elsewhere, cool. But yeah, we should say spoilers because we're going to in-depth talk about this.
Yeah, spoilers if you haven't watched, but I assume that by now, because this will come out on Tuesday now. We come out on Tuesdays.
That's right.
Not Monday anymore. I assume that everybody has watched it. Anyone who was gonna watch it, anyone who was dedicated. I mean, I know people who got up, or super early in the morning to watch the finale, and
yeah.
I mean, if I'm taking a representative sample of like my friends, for the most part, they were satisfied, and they were like, oh, I was hoping for this or that, but they're not the extreme. For the most part, again, I have to use that qualifier. They're not the extreme fandom, I suppose, or they're fans, but it's like, yeah, it ended up being a show about a person dealing with grief and learning how to let go, which is all it had to be. Right. Everything else was just gravy. I am a little disappointed about a few things, and I feel like I was invested in the show a lot more. And maybe that's just because of the situation in the world right now. And, it was nice to have that, WandaVision Friday again. It was nice to have that sort of consistency for a while. Yes. And so maybe that's what people are reacting to more. I do feel, strangely, a sense of loss now that the show is over.
I am kind of bummed because it was a fun little mystery thing to get every week. And, we've talked about it quite a bit on here, and just sitting there thinking about it and watching the episodes more than once to mine it for details and hints. I agree with you. It's like, man, that's over now. I'm kind of bummed. But in a way, though, it's like we got this complete thing, and I feel like it will be something I'll rewatch, and it won't, knowing how everything plays out, won't detract from it. It will be, it'll be fun watching it again, going, oh, so that's what that meant, kind of thing, Right. So
yeah, there are definitely some hanging chads, though, at the end, if you want to call it that, some questions. Yes. Like a lot of things, I mean, not a lot, but some things I feel that were put forth weren't resolved. Not that they had to be resolved. There were a lot of loose ends still. Like, for example, and we can talk about loose ends for a minute. Who is Jimmy's witness in witness protection? Who was that guy? Who was that person? That side was like a subplot that just disappeared. And
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. And as others have pointed out, the idea that the Evan Peters character was actually just an actor named Boner. I mean, that's kind of, I don't know.
Hey, though, I kind of feel like I was right about that.
Maybe a cheap shot to the audience a little bit. Like, I don't know. I feel like Marvel is maybe above that. And I don't know if the whole thing about Paul Bettany saying, I want to work with this famous actor, if that was like cheeky on his part. That was kind of because if you've been in the Marvel game long enough, that people really, really latch onto this kind of stuff. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame Paul Bettany for being funny. That's fine. But it was like the whole Ralph Boner thing was kind of like a F you a little bit. I don't know. It kind of bothered me. I'm not going to lie.
So that part, because I think I said at one point that, it'd be great if it just turned out that he was just some guy or an actor or something like that and wasn't actually Quicksilver from the mutant universe. And so I was one prediction I was sort of right on.
Well, right.
Or at least a hope. So that was like, that was kind of fun seeing that play out. But
the question is, was that I mean, as someone pointed out, I don't remember, I was watching some commentary about the episode. As someone pointed out, I would like to give credit, but I totally drawn a blank. But anyway, they could have cut that scene slightly differently, where she just basically knocks him to the ground and sits on him, and that's how she overpowers him, and then you could cut out of it. She didn't have to hold the head shut up and you go, Ralph Boner? It's like, Boner. So it's like,
well, yeah, why was that? It was Ralph, the missing husband.
No, I get that. I get that. And what was the deal with the rabbit eating the thing? What was I mean, there's a lot of things that are still hanging.
Well, and to be fair, with people that are going to be disappointed with some predictions, they made a whole lot of fuss over mentioning my guy, my aerospace engineer guy, and that completely did not pay off at all.
So well, unless that was that's true. There's another thing that didn't pay off at all. There was a lot of things on the whiteboard. Although one thing on the whiteboard of Jimmy's that did pay off was Skrulls.
Yeah,
we did get a Skrull at the end, which was interesting. So was Captain Rambo's team all Skrulls? I guess they might have been, right?
Could have been. Yep.
So I couldn't. I tried to watch and figure out if that woman at the end, the agent who came and said, "We need you in the theater," and turned out to be a Skrull, was she with the other team that came? Because I can't remember.
I don't think so.
I think she was somebody else. I think she had an FBI badge. But here's my other prediction: Jimmy is a Skrull too.
No.
I'm just going to throw that out there because he called the FBI, right?
Yeah.
And the FBI that came, are they all Skrulls, or are they just partially Skrulls? Because the one who came to get Captain Rambo was, and she's like, yeah, a mutual friend needs to see you up in space. Obviously, that's Nick Fury. But,
Yes.
so I don't know. Maybe the Skrulls have been here all along, and they've been secretly helping
been
out.
here the whole time.
But the Skrulls are the Skrulls we met along the way, you know? So
yeah, I mean, so those are, to me, that's kind of, I get what you're saying, and I was kind of like, come on. But it's a little bit nitpicking. The part that I was very, very disappointed with was them basically, I mean, they kind of addressed the townspeople waking up and being like, hey, you did this horrible thing to us, and we got all your nightmares and stuff. And then a few minutes later, it was like, it's all good.
Well, she did choke them out a little bit, so maybe the fight left them a little, you know?
Well, and it was just, but to me, it's like, so she gets to walk away with no consequences, basically.
Well,
If
we're talking about logic too, it's like in the scene when everything's over and she's standing in the house that wasn't constructed yet, her car is visibly sitting right there.
Yeah.
But in the next scene, she's walking through the town.
Yeah. So
Why didn't she just drive?
She left the townspeople her car. That was her.
That was her compensation.
Listen. Yeah.
You can have a red Buick as your compensation.
Sorry for all this. Let me leave you my car.
Sorry for all the torture.
Yeah.
Shucks. So yeah, that didn't make any sense. I mean, it doesn't matter necessarily. If here's my feeling about the episode. The episode was much longer. More things happened in the episode, and it was cut down.
Yeah.
Because remember, there was also this discussion of like, all the episodes are going to be like an hour and a half and blah, 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 blah. So I feel like there's like a director's cut, if you will, of WandaVision somewhere. And I think that Marvel, responded to what was happening with the audience, with the fans and the speculation and everything. And maybe we were getting, I don't know for sure, but I feel like maybe we were getting too many things right. Maybe there was other elements of the show that were removed to sort of drag them. And the other thing to keep in mind is that WandaVision was supposed to come after Black Widow, and it is not supposed to be the first Marvel property that we get in Phase 4.
That's true.
So the idea that there was probably more elements in it that, like even mutants maybe, or even the multiverse, or Skrulls, or whatever, that maybe were, because this episode felt a bit choppy to me from a sort of editing standpoint.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there was more stuff that just got cut because they realized this is the first thing people are going to experience, and we don't want to give them the Fantastic Four or Doctor Strange or Reed Richards or any of this stuff or the multiverse, in too much of it, because now we need to have these be introduced in the movies instead, because they're still making Doctor Strange, so they can do whatever they need to do for that.
Well, that's true.
I feel like that was an element of it. So I'm wondering, and we'll never find this out, but I'm wondering if the whole boner thing was added later.
Well, that could be, because it's like, well, we're not anywhere near introducing the mutants, so maybe we need to alter that and hold off for a little while.
Yeah, I don't know that for sure, and I still like making predictions, because this is what I'm saying. This is why I like the show so much.
Yes,
that you can. It makes you think. Like if you watch something like pretty much any other Marvel movie, except maybe like Winter Soldier or something, it's not exactly fodder for the brain in a lot of ways. It's like it's fun. It's fun action, sci-fi, or not sci-fi, but superhero movies. But this, you had to think about it a little bit more.
I did also find it weird that Darcy shows up to ram the ice cream truck into Haywood's vehicle and then
enjoy prison.
Well, and then she's gone. It's like, oh yeah, she took. It seemed like this again. It feels like there was another scene or something else that was pulled out of it, because then there was just the cursory line as, oh, she, paperwork isn't for her or follow up isn't for her.
Debriefs are for losers.
Yeah, it was like that seemed kind of weird that she just
who was in that scene, right? It was just Captain Rambo, and it was just the Skrull, right?
Right.
Was Jimmy there? Yeah. Oh no, Jimmy was there too.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, were those done later? Because then later there's the scene with the Skrull in the movie theater with just Captain Rambo, and I know that's also setting up Captain Marvel 2 as well. So I don't know. I feel like because it was weird that Darcy just disappeared. She was such a big part of that one episode. especially with Vision, and then that's it. She gets like a 2-second cameo. Enjoy prison, and then she disappears. So I feel like you're right. I feel like there's more with her too, which of course brings up another question. Maybe Darcy's a Skrull too.
Everyone's Skrulls.
Everyone's a Skrull. If everyone's a Skrull, are anyone Skrulls? I'm just
actually, so funny you bring that up because they did announce they're doing whether it's a limited series or a ongoing series, Secret Invasion with Nick Fury on Disney Plus, and the premise of Secret Invasion is that basically at the beginning of it they discovered that like half the heroes and villains in the Marvel Universe were Skrulls in disguise and had been for a number of years.
Well, that's right. That's kind of why I brought it up.
Stasis. So this totally could lead into the whole Secret Invasion thing. So
I love Secret Invasion comics. I thought that was a really great story. But yeah, I mean I'm sure that's why Jimmy wrote that on the board because let's be honest, Marvel is not stupid. They know people are going to zoom in on that shit and analyze it. Plus, they know that that's a way to drop little clues down the road. They've got a history of all this stuff. Like little things happen in different things to sort of spark you. And they've had to retcon a few things, but not that much. So the fact that they were brought up at all and then shown, should tell you, that's Secret Invasion and Captain Marvel too. So the question is, will the Skrulls be good guys? Because in the comics, they are not good guys.
Right.
So they're bad for the most part. So I'm wondering, because we already established in Captain Marvel that there's a good faction of Skrulls, and it's the Kree who are the problem, right? So are we going to be on the Skrull side, or is there going to be a bad faction of Skrulls? Is there going to be like, I don't know. It should be interesting, but I'm looking forward to a Secret Invasion thing, and more Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury. I'm fine with that. So yeah, but I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it's setting up a Secret Invasion show, which, because they've announced it, doesn't mean they haven't been planning it for 6 months, right?
Right, exactly. So I mean, I'm sure that is going to feed into that. Like you said, Captain Marvel 2, I think the final end credit scene with Scarlet Witch trying to bring back her kids through the Darkhold, that's probably our lead into Doctor Strange 2.
Well, what is she doing there? Because it reminded me of Doctor Strange learning magic in the Doctor Strange movie, because her astral self is learning while she's like walking around making tea and shit. Is that what it seemed like to you?
Yeah, exactly. And then, she heard her kids' voices, so they exist in some form somewhere, and she's like, I'm getting them back. So,
well, yeah, so that also brings up the idea of the multiverse, right? In some other multiverse version of Earth, they do exist. And are they tools of? I mean, that's a door to Mephisto still, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Or to whatever. So the question is she going to go like multiverse to multiverse and find the world where the kids are alive but she's not, and she's going to like kidnap them, or she's going to take them from another? I don't know. That's interesting. Right. Which would also make her a bad guy in a way. Although I kind of feel like if that's her motivation, it's like, I want to be a mom. That's, I don't know. I feel like
that seems weak. Yeah.
It does seem weak. And I'm not saying nothing against moms, obviously, because moms are awesome, but it's just, there has to be more to it than that. And I think the idea that she was willing to choke those people, she still doesn't really have a handle on her powers yet, could still mean that she's going to be the villain for a while in Doctor Strange, and then maybe turn the corner, and Strange will help her. But they do make a point of calling out the Sorcerer Supreme during the WandaVision finale and saying that her power is greater than his, right?
Right. And I mean, you're right. There were moments where it didn't seem like she was using her powers for good, if you want to put it that way. And, Agatha, I mean, as much as you can trust the scene-chewing bad guy, Agatha kind of hinted at, that's more power than you're going to be able to know what to do with, or, something along those lines. So, it leads into the theme in comics all the time, absolute power corrupts absolutely kind of thing. So it could be kind of like they're borrowing from the Dark Phoenix storyline, and, because she gets too much power and she goes through the Darkhold like she is, that she's like, I can fix everything, right? And decides to go fix the universe, and at the same time breaks it. So, and
creates mutants and does a bunch of other stuff. So she could still be the catalyst for a lot of things. And I like the idea of the Dark Phoenix sort of parallels, because you can't trust those redheads, man. They're crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently in comics,
in comics, the redheads are the wild card, because Jean Grey was a redhead too, so you got to be careful.
She was. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, they're fiery, I guess. Maybe
Sure.
Stan Lee just liked redheads, but we'll never know, I guess. Anyway, there were definitely loose ends, but again, I feel like that was intentional, obviously, to keep people interested. Not that I wasn't going to be interested. But the other thing I was wondering is, will they address any of this in Falcon and Winter Soldier? And I say that because I'm thinking not, because technically I think Falcon and Winter Soldier takes place before this, right?
No, well, it's got to take place around the same time, because this takes place after Endgame, and Falcon and Winter Soldier obviously takes place after Endgame as well. So maybe I'm not quite clear where in the timeline they're supposed to both take place.
Because they have the shield, so it has to happen after old Cap comes back from the multiverse and says, "Here, you're going to have the shield. I'm not going to tell you how many times I bagged Peggy Carter, though, but it was pretty good, I'm just saying."
Wow.
Sorry, that was a terrible Cap.
Tell her niece. That'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah, she'll be a Skrull too, by the way. Sharon Carter's going to end up being a Skrull too. I'm just telling you right now. That's my prediction.
I think either Bucky or Falcon are a Skrull.
No, neither one of them are. But I think Sharon Carter could be.
Okay.
She has a shrouded mystery. Who knows where she comes from?
Well, that's true.
I'm just kidding. I'm just going to throw the Skrulls theory out now, because I was mad. I'm not mad. I don't mean that, but I was like, I really thought that my theories were sound, because there were a lot of clues in WandaVision that were dropped, and I was like, you know what, that seems like it leads somewhere, and it didn't. Maybe it still will. Maybe.
Well, and one of my other predictions sort of came true, even though we don't really know what it means. And the whole thing with where we were left with Vision, with him, he didn't put his consciousness in White Vision, but he activated and gave him data that he previously couldn't access, which, if we trust the screen, was basically all of Vision's memories, especially of Wanda. So Vision is out there and can come back.
Yeah, definitely. Spectral Vision, or whatever they're going to call him, right?
Yeah.
So he absolutely come back, and he can change his appearance, so there's no reason why he could be exactly the same as he was before, except he doesn't have the Mind Stone, so, which is fine, because that was actually a problem. But if you can go by what they showed on screen, it was basically unlocking everything that he already had. You can't suppress that stuff forever, and they can't stop you from accessing it. So,
well, speaking of the 1,000-pound Infinity Stone in the room, the other piece to that is also Wanda mentioning she brought Vision back. And he was essentially the piece. She said the piece of the Mind Stone that's within me. So she has part of an Infinity Stone in her consciousness or something. So maybe that's the final piece that is able to reactivate and bring back Vision.
Well, that's an interesting theory. But then, because something happened to her in that in Strucker's lab or whatever. The Mind Stone came activated and came to her and showed her a vision of the future, right?
Yes.
And obviously enhanced her powers in some way. So there's still more to be said, whether it because it infused her, because even in that scene where she's building Vision, there's the yellow power that's coming from somewhere, and that's the Mind Stone power, right? So she has that power within her, which is why she's able to become the Scarlet Witch, and why she's able to be potentially dangerous to the entire multiverse. Otherwise, she wouldn't have that power at all. So Agatha was right about that. I think that Agatha is going to turn out to be more, I don't know, not an ally for Scarlet Witch, but I think that she'll come back in Doctor Strange, and maybe she'll actually become more of a good guy like she is in the comics. I don't know. They're not done with her. And like she says, if I need help, I know where to find you. Right.
And Catherine Hahn's awesome. So she has to come back. So
I agree. I think that would be great. And she should come back, and we'll definitely see more. Yeah. I can't imagine they're going to introduce a character like that and then let her live and not bring her back.
Yeah. I mean, that's, she started out in the comics as a bad guy fighting the Fantastic Four, although she was being kind of semi-controlled and semi-led down the wrong path by her son. So, and she redeemed herself and became, the nanny for Franklin Richards, for the Fantastic Four's kid. So, not that is necessarily where this character needs to go here, but there's precedent for, redemption for that character. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, there has to be redemption, because Wanda's not exactly a true hero, right?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, she started out radicalized after the death of her family, and she was basically trying to kill the Avengers at one point.
Right.
And did a lot of bad stuff to them, mind controlled them and whatever, and then was fighting against them until she wasn't. So obviously she's not, even Ultron was saying, she's not totally good. So
right.
It'll be interesting to see how they play that out. I as far as endings go for a show, I mean, it did end the show, and it did end in the way that they intended it to. I think they tied up the threads that they were trying to tie up. It was a story about grief and dealing with that and saying goodbye. And yeah, it was very emotional. And the scene with them watching the wall come towards them before Vision disappears was good. But she seemed, if not satisfied, she seemed like at peace for a few minutes, right?
Yes.
After all, and she's like, okay, all right, that's how it ended. And then she decided to walk through town. It's like, I'm so happy that I'm going to leave my car. I don't know why I keep going back to that. But if they did want us to remember the car, why do a wide shot where you can see the car in the shot clearly? And then she's walking through town with her hood up, and it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Maybe she drove mostly to town, and she's like, I need to dramatically walk through town. So
right, yeah, and I thought those people would be more pissed off. Frankly, maybe they're just still in shock.
Yeah, to me, that's really the only unsatisfying part, if I'm completely honest, was that. And that happens in pretty much any movie where you don't really ever get to see the fallout from the commoners or the background characters. But that to me
don't get to rise up.
Yeah, but just because we spent so much time with them over the course of the whole show in various guises, it just seemed to me there should have been a more satisfying conclusion for the townspeople and more acknowledgement of what they went through.
Well, again, maybe there was.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Maybe there was in the director's cut. In the Snyder cut of WandaVision, there's definitely some more closure.
The Snyder cut, the Feige cut.
Even Deborah Jo Rupp, I mean, a sitcom icon, if you will, had some good, good scenes in the first episode, but then she's like sprinkled through the show. I mean, she gets like third billing in the show in the credits. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like this. I feel like there was more to this because 9 episodes is also a weird number. Maybe there's a 10th episode somewhere.
Well,
I don't know.
It was funny because there was a rumor for a while that there was going to be a 10th episode that they didn't announce because I think there was like there was either some director or some actors that were listed on some website, WandaVision 10 episodes, and then because they were gradually getting more, the episodes were getting longer and longer, and by the 8th episode people are like, this isn't really going to be tied up in one episode, there's got to be a hidden or secret 10th episode. So there was that rumor for a while. Obviously, as far as we know, it hasn't panned out. Maybe we'll find out this coming Friday, but
maybe it'll drop this Friday, but won't even be a big secret. I have a hard time believing they can keep that kind of secret. Maybe they can.
Yeah, maybe. But so yeah, but regardless of that, I think you're right. There just seems to be some rethinking and retooling of the episode because of various schedules and
that's exactly what I'm reacting to. There seemed to be retooling of the episode, definitely. Yeah. And maybe there was 10 episodes. I mean, again, we're just speculating. I don't really have any insider knowledge about any of this stuff.
Sure.
Anybody I know at Marvel, A, would never say anything because they love their jobs, and B, would never say anything. So it's just, I feel like the episode felt slightly more deconstructed. Yes, the big points, the big beats were satisfied, but there was a lot of more subtle stuff that was not satisfied and not resolved. Now, whether they're going to leave that for later, which they probably will, and again, I think partially that was because this was not supposed to be the first Marvel thing for Phase 4. It was supposed to be movies.
Yes.
And then this was going to be a supplemental thing or another thing that explains it could have, we could have had a couple of films and then Doctor Strange could have happened, and then maybe this would have happened or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, I guess. But the idea that there's more to it, I still think there is, and I still think we're going to get more. I'm gonna start the hashtag now. Hashtag release the 10th episode. So release the 10th cut, or release the who's the producer of WandaVision? Release his cut. Yeah,
exactly.
Because you don't know, Marvel is smart. They will go and they will shoot people against a green screen. It's like you just stand here like they did with Carol Danvers, they did with Brie Larson. It's like she's like, I don't know what I'm shooting. I'm just here. It's like I'm standing in front of a green screen doing dialogue in an outfit, or with mocap shit on me, and I don't even know what's happening. And then they put that in a movie like a year later. So you don't know when any of this stuff was shot. People could have been shooting scenes for WandaVision 2 years ago and not know what it's about. So
that was that always struck me as funny, because there was the famous thing where Gwyneth Paltrow was surprised that she was in a particular movie, in one of the Marvel movies. She's like, I wasn't in that, and everybody kind of made fun of her. It's like, she's all woo woo and doesn't remember stuff. But like you said, they have frequently shot scenes with characters when they could, and put them in movies later, and probably, it was part of their contract. So they're like, yeah, I'll just go in and do this. And it was shot probably like 2 and 3 years before they talked to her. And she probably, I don't imagine that all of the actors religiously watch these movies like we do. So she probably had no idea. She just knew, I'm fulfilling my contract. I'm doing,
yeah, it's just a job. You
so
do your work, and you do your publicity and whatever. It's like, yeah, I don't know. That's why I agree with you. I wouldn't necessarily blame her. She probably didn't realize it. So,
yeah, she knew it was a Marvel movie, but it was like, that was so long ago. I didn't, and it was a day shooting. Whatever. And so, yeah, people making fun of her. It's like, yeah, that happens, especially with the Marvel movies, quite often. So I bet if you went to so-and-so and said, oh yeah, you were in a movie with blah, 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 and they'd be like, oh, I don't know, I just did my scene.
Well, yeah, so, she was making a comment about how she didn't know she was in that movie with Tom Holland. She's like, yeah, we were working.
Yeah, that's right.
Tom Holland said something. He's essentially like, no, I wasn't in that. So, but yeah. It was Spider-Man Far From Home, right, where he gets the suit.
Right, and that scene, the way they shot it, they could have done her parts, a completely different day than his, because there was like no part where they were like,
they were not seen together
side by side or anything like that. Well, she may not even known who she was talking to, right? It was just I did my scene for a day.
I'm standing on this platform and there's nobody around. I'm on an empty soundstage with a bunch of other dudes and women and whatever, and it's me talking to nothing. And that's what you do for Marvel. You just stand there talking to nothing, wearing a motion. Although she was wearing a suit, I think, but not a motion capture suit. But yeah, and also another thing that always reminds me of that is, if you remember the end of Endgame, the funeral scene for Tony Stark. Spoilers. Yes. All those people weren't there at the same time.
They were, though, because they did a group photo.
There's just no way, though. A lot of it looks fake, especially like Chadwick Boseman and stuff. That totally looks fake to me.
Except they released a behind the scenes group photo.
Right, and
everybody is there.
You can't fake that.
Yeah, it was like, because I thought the same thing when I saw it. I'm like, oh, they could absolutely do the groups of people together, and then they released a you look it up. They did a behind the scenes photo by the lake with everybody.
Looks fake as hell to me.
They're all there. It's crazy. They talk about how insane it was getting everyone there for a day.
That's funny. Even especially like Benedict Cumberbatch is if you go, the camera's moving past him, he looks 2D. It's just
There may have been one or two that weren't there. I didn't go through the whole group photo, but it's pretty much, I would say almost all of them, if not all of them.
Well, we know that Robert Downey Jr. wasn't there, but
yes, but
anyway. So I fully expect that we will get, not on a 10th episode of WandaVision, I don't think that's going to happen, but I fully expect that we will get threads of this show intertwined in subsequent films. I'm sure in like Eternals, they're going to add some of the stuff.
Yeah.
I think Eternals is where, like, obviously where Celestials are going to come from and all that stuff. And then we're going to get it in Multiverse, obviously. And then, of course, in the Fantastic Four movie, whenever that happens. My question is about the Fantastic Four movie. Do you think it would be like a full origin story? Because it probably will be, right?
Yeah, it's probably going to be. And I kind of hope it's not, because we've already gotten 2 Fantastic Four origin movies that of varying degrees of goodness, of quality. But so my hope is that it will be them already a team, and we'll get like their origin and flashbacks or something like that.
Well, they go to space, they get hit by cosmic rays, they have powers. There you go, done.
Yeah, that could be like the pre-title thing.
In the opening credits sequence, they're in space, they go, oh shit, what is that? And then
exactly.
Boom, done. See how easy that is? Although that's not as dramatic, obviously.
Let me write it. I could do it. So.
Yeah, put me in, coach. I'm ready to go. But okay, so the only other thing I was going to say, which I thought was kind of funny, is the sword director, was his plan just super stupid, or
yes,
is he the worst cartoony bad guy ever? It's like, I'm just going to, it's like, what?
Well, I was kind of like, when we finally found out exactly what it was, it's like, you're not going to get away with that, right? I mean, that's... despite the fact that the Avengers seem to have broken up, there's still like Hulk and a bunch of other pretty high-powered heroes around. And as soon as he shows, White Vision shows up and takes out some bad guys somewhere, they're going to be like, first of all, oh, hey, our pal's back. And the second, they're going to want to go talk to him. And then it's like, no, he's bad. We're going to take him out. So I don't understand what the ultimate goal there was, but
that was a situation, I think, where his goal was to serve the story in some way, and the story was dealing with grief, and then kind of like rising from the ashes, Vision the Phoenix story, right? So it's like, oh, I'm reborn, more pure in my I don't say in my white form, because that sounds really bad, but so he becomes like almost like he's reborn, and his idea of, I'm going to use Vision to be a sentient weapon for sword is like, no, man, that's never going to happen, bro. But I just feel like he was a very cartoony, I hate to say it, very comic book villain, which I guess worked in a way, if you think about it that way. But his master plan was thwarted by a girl driving a ice cream truck. So there you go.
I think maybe it was like, hey, part of what we want to do with this is give a way to bring back Vision. And maybe the way they borrowed from the comics slightly, but I just think they ended up. I would say Haywood was probably a red herring too far. Maybe they were like, oh, we could do a red herring at the same time and make it seem like he's the one behind all of this when he's really not. And then maybe they're like, oh well, we getting to the end, we really don't know what to do with that, so he's just going to go to jail.
If only they'd had more Vision.
Again, though, I'm going to say they really need to, Marvel Universe, all their secret organizations, they need to really change their whole background checks and interview process for their directors, because they haven't had a lot of luck. I'm just saying.
Well, he was the acting director, right?
That's true.
So it's okay. I'm sure that he was also inserted because, hey, we hate authority figures who were like, blah, blah, blah. It was like it was a stab at some of the current situation that we're dealing with in the country, I suppose, too.
Well, that could be, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. But it didn't hurt that he was a tall, white, blonde male. You know what I mean?
Well, true.
I'm just saying. So, I'm not saying it didn't hurt, but that was not a coincidence. So, and he was like mansplaining things to Wanda and mansplaining things to the team, and, treating all the women subordinates as idiots and making Jimmy feel bad. And, he was a caricature for a reason, but yeah, he was a red herring for sure. The idea of, because for the most part, none of this mattered because it was basically about Wanda dealing with her shit and trying to feel better about the death of Vision. But then Vision's back, kind of, so that's good, right? And then she's the Scarlet Witch, and she's not evil, or is she evil? I don't know. We'll never know. I guess we will know. So, any final? I feel like we're forgetting a lot of loose ends, but I guess it's okay. We can talk about this later.
Possibly. Again, but, I feel like this is something we can certainly talk about more.
Revisit.
The road,
yeah, we've talked about WandaVision a lot, and we will start doing this again. I'm sure, for Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is coming out in like 2 weeks. So come on.
Yeah,
that's great.
So final thoughts. Overall, I was very happy with it, and I think it was a great show, and I liked the fact that they did something different with it, and. I won't lie. I got a little misty-eyed in some moments in the finale, and I think that I attributed that a lot to being a parent. But yeah, no, I really liked it. It was certainly something I will rewatch again, much like all of the other Marvel Universe stuff that we've gotten live action. So yeah, very, very happy we got it. Very satisfied with it. Doesn't need a second season. Very interested to see where the little breadcrumbs go from here. So there you go.
Yeah, I would say that as disappointed as I am in myself for falling into the trap of, let's make predictions about stuff, it was still fun to speculate, and it gives us something to talk about, which is nice too. But yeah, if you look at it from a story standpoint, it basically fulfilled all of its story obligations. The important parts were wrapped up in a nice way. Vision can move on with his life a little bit, and Wanda can move on with her life to her new path of being evil or whatever. Yeah, I mean, there were some things that I was hoping for, and I still feel like there was more to this episode, and maybe there was more of an episode down the road, because I'm sure they have more footage.
Yeah.
That I feel like they had to alter this a little bit for it to be the sort of premiere thing for Phase 4. But yeah, I was very satisfied. I enjoyed it. And ultimately, I'm just glad that a show like this exists at all, because you don't always get fun things that you can talk about. I mean, the water cooler show, right? That they always talk about, that kind of things. Like, you get a water cooler show where people sit around and discuss.
Yeah, exactly.
People sat around and discussed the shit out of this thing. Obviously, we did, and everybody else was too. So, showrunners dream of that at night. A show that people talk about.
Exactly.
So good for them. Great job, guys and girls and men and women and others. Great work. And we really thank you for making the show. So it was a good ride. So now that it's over, and I agree with you, I don't think there'll be another season, but they haven't, quote, ruled it out. So we'll see.
True. I mean, maybe they decide to bring back Vision in another limited run of WandaVision. I don't know. But
I don't know. I think Vision living in a small town solving crimes and writing mystery novels, I would totally watch that. Sorry.
We still need a Jimmy Woo and Darcy series. I'm just saying.
I don't know. You know what? The more I watch Jimmy, the less I liked him in this series.
Oh.
And I know that's a terrible thing to say. Nothing against the actor at all. It's just his character was, I don't want to say useless, but kind of useless. And he did have some cool magic stuff and whatever, but it's like, what was his point? I feel like his character was cut down.
Yeah.
And Darcy was kind of cut down. But Jimmy was like, they throw him in this thing. I know we were going to be done with talking about WandaVision, but one of the things, like, they throw him in this barn or whatever by himself, and he steals the cell phone, is able to unlock the phone and make a phone call, and he can pick the lock with this thing. I mean, it's like, what was the point of any of that except to get him to be able to call the Skrull FBI to people? I mean, I don't know. Yeah. He was a plot device more than he was a character, for sure. So
I did like the nice little callback when he got out of the handcuffs and he goes, flourish.
Yes, so he knows magic. He's a magic guy. That's cute.
No, but that was a nice little callback to the magic episode where Vision was, essentially drunk and kept saying flourish, and she's like, no, you're supposed to do that. You're not supposed to say it. There's a little callback. Anyway.
No, I got it. And they all watch the show, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's also a callback to him learning card tricks from Ant-Man too.
Maybe there's like something that had to be pushed back movie-wise that they are intended to have more with Darcy and Jimmy, and they needed to underplay them towards the end of this because it's like, that's not ready yet. So
maybe.
Who knows?
Anytime I see scenes where it's like a character isolated against something where they could easily have been shot at a different time, I'm always suspicious, especially with Marvel. It's like,
yes,
it's Jimmy by himself in a barn, easily shot by himself. It's Captain Rambo and one Skrull in a room that could have been a green screen. It's like a lot of this stuff could happen. So, and then where did Kat Dennings go? It's like, did we lose her for the day? She just had to go off and do something else. I mean, is she doing Love and Thunder now? I mean, hopefully she is, but yeah.
Did they shoot all? Maybe part of this too is I don't know if they finished shooting the whole season before COVID, and maybe when they came back to finish, was like, well, we have to make do with the footage we have, and we need to do inserts. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, you're right. There was just something off. It felt that there were things missing and things juggled around, or intentionally
removed, because I would say a majority of this show was filmed before COVID, but you're right. I think some of it maybe was done after, when they had more safety protocols in place.
They just couldn't get, Kat Dennings back.
Maybe they couldn't get her to come back. Yeah. I mean, but that means they had to have filmed sort of the quote unquote finale before, so, and a lot of this stuff is out of order, but I feel like they would shoot, if I'm scheduling this thing from a production standpoint, you have to shoot out everything that takes place in a certain era, right?
That's true.
And then you shoot out everything that takes place, and you also have to work around actors and whatever. and their schedules and stuff. And I'm sure everyone's busy doing other things, except your leads. I'm sure, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. I just lisp for some reason all of a sudden.
Maybe that's where the rumor of a 10th episode came in, is that they, intended to do that, but then they're like, well, we got to get this thing done, and we only have a limited time to finish up after COVID. So
right, we got a release date to hit. Disney Plus needs more content. Mandalorian's over with. Yeah, who knows? Who knows what happens behind the scenes? But you agree with me? The episode felt choppy, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. No, I agree with that. Things seemed either. Just seemed odd. I mean, obviously we got the main story of Wanda and Agatha, but yeah, you're right. A lot of stuff around it, and even some stuff with Wanda towards the end, just felt like we were missing something. And
that's stuff with Wanda and Agatha was those two actresses on a soundstage, with harnesses, right? It's like they could have been just them two. That could have been, the ending could have been totally different. Who knows?
And there was a lot of stuff. You're right. There's a lot of things, especially in the final episode, where characters were either isolated together and it wasn't there. I mean, this show hasn't been huge for crowd scenes, but there wasn't a lot of crowds. Even with like Sword, it was like Haywood and a couple other people.
Right.
So yeah, I think, I don't know if eventually I'm sure we'll hear the full story, but I don't know if it was COVID had made them have to rethink some stuff and reshoot it, or yeah, you're right though. It just seemed weird, a little choppy. They solved the major story beats they were trying to solve, and that was the whole point. Whether they did that now or 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever, but if Marvel is nothing if not flexible, and they can sort of change things as necessary, and they're not afraid of going to do pickups and reshoots and changing stuff around and whatever. So yeah, that was my feeling about it. Again, still enjoyed the show and I'm happy it exists, and I will watch it again too. But we talked about it a lot. We should probably go on to a couple other things maybe before we're done. So you wanted to talk about a show that you had watched though, right? And I haven't watched it yet, but you're going to mention it anyway. So go ahead. Yeah, I wanted to talk about Debris, or as you like to call it, Debris.
That's how I remember how to spell it, Debris.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not smart, so I need to help.
It's a new show on NBC. It's created by one of the creators and executive producers is J.H. Wyman, who created Fringe, or as I like to call it, Fringy.
Fringy.
So it's a great show. So the premise of it is previous to the show, to the premiere, there was a damaged alien spacecraft that was noticed by scientists moving through our solar system, and it broke apart from what we're told, and the debris from it has been raining down on Earth. And there is there's a task force that has been brought together with two agents, one a CIA operative played by Jonathan Tucker, and an MI6 operative played by Rhiannon Steele, who are they kind of head this task force, and they investigate things that happen because of the debris. I mean, it's not like, in comic books, and I hate to say that it's not like, it's different in real life. You don't just go around and collect all the debris and you're good. It's, this stuff is rained down over parts of the earth. And there's so it starts off with like this whole black market group that's like buying up pieces of the debris, and the debris has different properties that cause things to happen, either in nature or to humans and all this kind of stuff. So this group is, government group is trying to collect all the pieces. And, that's the basic premise, but being from someone who created Fringe and being well written, it's obviously a lot to do with the relationships and the personalities of the characters. It's really cool. I mean, one of the things I liked about it is there isn't, for the first episode, there isn't like when we meet the government operatives, there's no like extended exposition of, well, as you know, our device here does this and it reads this readings. Oh, you mean blah, blah, blah. It does it. They talk about their jargon and the readings they get and the team they have to collect these pieces without like explaining it to the audience, which I
that's
thought was
nice.
kind of cool. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
I hate
right
that.
in it. Yeah. So that part is really fun, and they obviously, being someone who created Fringe, he's aware of this with a male and female lead. They kind of jokingly address the whole thing of the will they won't they right off the bat, because the CIA operative, his boss says, hey, how is it working with what's her name, and he goes, oh well, she's obviously completely in love with me but trying to remain professional, and plays it off as a joke, and it's like, so we're going to address that right off the bat. And the rest of the episode,
So in episode 2, they fuck, is what you're saying?
yeah, exactly. No, they develop a really good, they make it clear that they are getting to know each other, because they haven't been working together very long, but they respect each other, and there's like a friendship building, which is nice. So it's not an immediate, like, they're making eyes at each other or anything like that. So,
Well, Scully and Mulder didn't make eyes at each other either, but then they
that's true. That's true. And I mean, it eventually could get that way, but they kind of, like I said, they kind of jokingly address it right off the bat to get that out of the way. And like I said, this task force is already established. This isn't the introduction of the task force. They've already got their protocols in place and all this kind of stuff. And we're not, I'm sure we'll learn what some of this stuff means as the show goes. But like I said, I appreciated the fact that there wasn't long exposition to explain to everyone what's going on.
In the second episode, a new recruit will come to the team.
Yes.
And they'll have to explain, they'll be asking questions. What do you mean? Who did you fuck to get into this program? Or whatever. It's like, yeah, what does that mean? Exactly. I don't understand how this kind of thing works. Because there has to be a noob, right? To be the audience surrogate so they can understand shit.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a interesting premise. I thought it was a strong first episode, and I'm on board. One thing I want to mention is one of the people starring in the show that's a regular cast member has, and it's this actor's name in real life, has the best name ever. His name is Scroobius Pip.
What?
So apparently it's a stage name, but yeah, no. I'm like, that is like the best name ever.
Did your parents not like you, Scroobius? Is that the problem? That sounds
cool. So
it's
this guy, David Meads, he's an actor from England. I guess he's a podcaster, and he's a spoken word poet.
Oh, don't trust those
recording artists and all this
podcasters,
stuff.
please.
So,
those guys are assholes.
Yeah, he's a hip hop. Yeah, I know. Don't ever trust podcasters.
Podcasters are a pain in the ass.
They're dicks. See, I got a dick joke in there.
Prima donnas.
But yeah, no, he goes by the stage name Scroobius Pip, and he kept that as his acting name. And I'm like, that's just the coolest name.
Way to go, man.
But yeah, so he's one of the black market guys that apparently they already have some alien tech, because he and his partner that go unnamed have these little, I don't know if they're pills or whatever, but they take them and they can instantly transport somewhere else. It's really cool. Really weird. So there's a lot of mystery set up in this. Little explanation, which again I appreciated, because I like being just thrown into it, and I don't like the whole exposition thing that wouldn't happen in real life, So
not if everybody knows.
Yes.
What's going on. There's no one to explain to. That's why I was joking about will the newbie show up and they have to explain
recruit, yes.
Now, keep in mind, this is the pilot, right? So
yeah,
who knows? Because in the pilot, you don't know if you're going to go to series or whatever. So it's like, I'm not going to spend time explaining shit. I'm just going to go forward as if it's all, known and everything. So I bet you that there will be someone for the people just coming into the show where we'll have to just go, well, now we have to explain what happened, etc. Maybe that'll be Olivia Dunham. Maybe she'll show up. I don't know.
Yes, maybe. That would be cool.
I would be down with more Anna Torv.
Absolutely, that'd be great. It would be great if they brought her in.
Did you watch? Did you watch what it was called? Oh, it's the David Fincher show, not Profiler, but it was something like that on Netflix about the early days of profiling serial killers. She was in that show, and she's excellent still. Oh, I would totally watch Anna Torv in another show.
I'll tell you this: I don't mind the new recruit showing up and they explain stuff. What I really hate is when they're like, "Hey, we got a 85 on the blah 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 meter," and someone that they've been working with forever goes, "Oh, you mean the thing that detects blah blah blah?" Yeah, because you remember when we invented it. It's like, are you kidding? Really?
What does that do again? I don't remember. I've only been doing this job for I'm new I'm 30. I'm 10 days from retirement. What does that mean? I forgot.
Yeah, it's like I don't remember these things. How does that work again?
I'm not
and
technical. I'm the driver. I drive the car.
Yes.
What do I know?
I hate that. I'm like, if you were that ignorant of the tools you used, you wouldn't be on this. It's just like, okay. So, but I don't mind if it's like, oh, here's newbie, and it's like, wow, what are all these cool toys? Well, this does blah blah blah. But is again, if they spend like 20 minutes of like they do with Q in the James Bond movies of, let's give detailed explanation of everything. And next we have, and you can win a new car. It's like, oh God, no, don't do that. Well,
that's what I'm saying. If we're talking about Fringe again, that's there needs to be like a Peter Bishop, Walter's kid who can be like the more inquisitive genius who can explain things, but also he and Walter can talk to each other and explain things to each other. And that helps you discover stuff.
So we'll see if they do that.
I'm a huge fan of Fringe. So any show that I don't know that J.H. Wyman created Fringe. I thought that was J.J. Abrams who created that show, but whatever, or Alex Kurtzman maybe. But I know he was a showrunner on it.
Yes,
and so, but that's fine. I mean, whatever. I'm not trying to dick the guy. I think Fringe was a great show.
Take his stuff away from him, man.
Especially when they went into the parallel world, man, and they had Zeppelins and shit. That's awesome. I don't know why that. I always love that. But yeah, Fringe was a great show, and I don't think it gets enough love. In fact, I think I might rewatch it again. But yeah, this sounds great. I like the idea of a sort of X-Files type of show, and I assume that there'll be the overarching story, and then there'll be like Monster of the Week kind of stuff, or is that what they're kind of setting up?
It'll probably be Debris of the Week. Although like there's a nice little stinger at the end of the first episode that's kind of like where one of the characters is like, no way, that's impossible, kind of thing. And I don't want to spoil it. You should watch it.
I'm definitely going to watch it now that I know its connection. The other question I have is, does it take place in the Fringe universe?
Unknown yet.
Unknown.
So, yeah.
Well, it will know if someone shows up. I mean, there's a lot of people from Fringe who could show up, but not necessarily Olivia. I mean, obviously Walter can't show up, I don't think. But
well, and I want to read.
Astrid
I want to. What's that?
Astrid, she could come. She's still
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to rewatch. After we get like 2 or 3 episodes in of this, I want to rewatch just to see if there is a odd-looking background character that shows up in every episode.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The Watchers. Yeah, see you guys. Yeah. That's cool. So, all right, well, I'm definitely gonna watch that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and we posted the trailer on the website on Friday because it just dropped on Hulu, is a movie called Boss Level with Frank Grillo, directed by Joe Carnahan. I'm a Joe Carnahan fan. I enjoy his films. Some people don't, but that's okay. And I enjoy Frank Grillo's work as well. I think he's underrated as an actor, maybe. But in Boss Level, well, he does a really good job. He can do the action, obviously, and he can do the sort of, the tough guy stuff. But he's got a kid in this one, and there's a lot of elements where he's interacting with the kid, and he can't say who he is necessarily. The premise of the film is basically, it's a lot like Groundhog Day, but he's caught in sort of a time loop, and he keeps replaying his death. He dies very, very quickly in everything, and he gradually understands why this is happening and how it ties in with the fate of the universe.
Okay.
So it's good. I mean, it's got Frank Grillo, like I said, and it's got a bunch of other people whose names are totally escaping me. I don't know why I'm having trouble with names again. It does have Mel Gibson, so whatever you feel like Mel Gibson, or whatever you feel about Mel Gibson, he is in the movie. He plays the main bad guy. I know he's kind of a asshole, let's be honest, probably, but that doesn't doesn't take the film away from me. And he does a good job in the movie. I mean, he's still a good actor. I mean, his personal life is a mess, but and his things he's done is not great. But I guess I don't let that bother me sometimes. It's not his movie anyway. He's just the bad guy. It's Frank Grillo's movie. So, and Michelle Yeoh, by the way, is also in the movie. So that's awesome.
See, now Grillo, time loop, Michelle Yeoh, I'm in. I need to watch this.
Yeah, she's got a good part with him, and then Naomi Watts actually plays his ex-wife. That's the name I couldn't remember. Sorry, Naomi.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's good, and there's a lot of action. There's a lot of and there's humor, and like I said, Grillo does a good job with the acting. And these two guys, Frank Grillo and Joe Carnahan, got together and formed a production company, and they're trying to make movies sort of on an indie way. And I also want to try to support that kind of thing too. So that's why I'm calling out like Space Sweepers. I like to call stuff out that's not necessarily mainstream Hollywood. I mean, I love mainstream Hollywood stuff for the most part too, but smaller films, smaller action films, genre films, which I love, I like to try to give them some attention if I can. So I enjoyed Boss Level, and I think that that you would enjoy it too, Joe. I'd be interested to hear what you think. I will
definitely watch it. I feel like that because of some of the big tentpole movies, or some of the huge movies like the James Bonds and the Marvel movies and stuff like that are being held for a potential theater release, that a lot of movies that would have like this that would have previously possibly been overlooked or overshadowed are kind of getting their due, because they're like, yeah, sure, we'll release this on streaming, we don't care. And I just think a lot of things that maybe mainstream audiences or most people would have not watched, they're now getting attention, because it's like, oh, I want to watch a movie, but James Bond isn't coming out till later. Let's see what's on this new streaming service. Wow, there's all these cool movies. So I think, again, not trying to say that there's anything good out of the pandemic, but if there had to be some kind of silver lining to find, it would be that there's a lot of things that are getting attention that, in a good way, that previously probably wouldn't have. So that's good.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I don't think that they, like Carnahan and Grillo, don't feel like a Hulu premiere is probably a downer.
No,
I'm sure they're thrilled to have the movie out. I watched it, I want to say at least a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. So it's been finished for a while. And I think that obviously COVID had a lot to do with it. Maybe it was going to get a theatrical release. Maybe it was going to get a whatever. But a movie like this is probably, I mean, it could, in a perfect world, would have gone to theaters, maybe a smaller release. It's just not going to get the kind of attention. Like you said, it's not going to compete against tentpole films, and it's not going to have the marketing behind it. So something like Hulu or streaming is a perfect way to release it. And I don't know if the stigma exists as much now as it used to. There was a lot of snobbery about, you can't work in TV because that's not movies. You can't have streaming. Right. It's not movies or whatever. It's an action sci-fi movie, which is totally my wheelhouse. And it's, I enjoyed it. It's got like 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, if you care about that kind of thing. It's definitely certified fresh. But like I said, I like Carnahan. I enjoyed The A-Team. I enjoyed Smokin' Aces and Narc. I mean, I liked all of his movies. And The Grey, if you've never seen The Grey, by the way, Liam Neeson fighting wolves, come on, man. That's fucking awesome.
Great. Exactly.
Yeah. So he knows what to do. He knows his way around action, and Grillo's good. I mean, it's just, you're right. It wouldn't have gotten the kind of attention that it's getting. And whether it'll be successful, I don't know. But it was still a modestly budgeted movie. I think it's only like $45 million or something, which is not a lot. It seems like a lot of money, but it's not a lot for a big movie, for sure.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to bring it up, and that's why we posted the trailer on the website. And if you like sci-fi action kind of movies, you could definitely do a lot worse, and it's actually quite good. So
I will check it out, and we will discuss it more. I know I keep saying that about these movies you suggest, and I need to get on it, and I will. So
you should. And I think that again, I would like to see. These are the kind of movies I used to make, not necessarily at this budget, but it's like when I was doing films, it was indie film for sure. And if the more times that indie films are successful or get out there, it's better for everybody, because not everybody can make Avengers Endgame. There's like 500 people working on that movie, but that's not a lot compared to the amount of people working in the industry. And, I like to see 100 movies made a year and 200 movies made a year, whether they're on streaming or whatever, and we need entertainment, and entertainment's important. And is this high art or whatever? I mean, whatever that means. It's just, it's good, entertaining, fun, and sometimes, you don't need much more than that. So it doesn't need to solve the world's problems. So
sometimes a movie only has to be a movie. So
right. And that's why you always talk about like things like Transformers, which I never really loved or anything. I didn't enjoy, and I've forgotten basically 5 minutes after I watched them, but it's still popcorny type stuff. And that's important, especially, with what's going on in the world. You want to watch some shit blow up that's not your own world, your own life or whatever. So Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said, I don't understand the people that are like, well, I just wasted 2 hours. I'm like, well, if you didn't like it, why did you sit there for 2 hours? You should have been out after 5 minutes.
Well,
and,
I can say that I did that with something like. Did you watch Monster Hunter?
No.
With the oh boy, I'm terrible with names again. Why am I terrible with names? It's terrible. It's the same guy who did like the Resident Evil franchise and all that stuff, and she's the same.
Wes
same
Anderson.
Woman. Yeah, Paul W.S. Anderson, not Wes Anderson.
Oh yeah,
I'd like to see a Wes Anderson.
I
would like to see a Wes Anderson Resident Evil movie. I would totally watch that.
Paul S. Anderson.
That would be quirky as fuck. But
and Mila Jovovich.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Mila Jovovich. I like her, and she's she's good in at what she does. But Monster Hunter was terrible, and I was literally watching it. And I got a screener. I'm like, no, I can't. I want to support this shit. I want to support smaller films, but I can't. It is so bad. I had to turn it off. I just couldn't get through the whole thing.
So I'm going to be out after a few minutes. I'm like, I'm not going to enjoy this. I'm not going to say I'm going to watch this whole thing and then complain about it after. I mean, Transformers movies, I know exactly what they're going to be going in. And honestly, I have rewatched them multiple times because it's 2 hours of escapism and it's fun. And sometimes that's all a movie needs to be. I don't need it to be true to life, to real life, and to the real military and all this stuff. I don't need it to change, every single movie I watch doesn't need to change my world perspective and to, enlighten me as a human being. Sometimes I just want 2 hours of fun entertainment. And in my opinion, for me, that's what movies like that provide. Not for everybody. But again, I'm like, listen, 5 or 10 minutes into it, if you're like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, stop watching it. There are plenty of other movies. Go watch Boss Level. Go watch Willy's Wonderland. There's plenty of other movies out there that you can watch that I'm sure you will find something that will be worth your 2 hours. Same thing with TV shows. Don't
exactly.
There's too many things out there being made by people that really care and are really interested in you seeing what they have to see for someone to obsess over one thing. So that's my lesson.
Yeah,
for today,
exactly.
Kids.
I think that, whatever you want to say about Michael Bay, and we're not going to get into a whole Michael Bay discussion, but Michael Bay gives a shit about what he's doing. He's not just phoning it in. He really, really cares. He's a perfectionist. He really cares about what he's doing. Now, you can argue the relative merits of what he's doing, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but there's no denying the skill involved. There's no denying the passion involved. There's no denying that the guy is not just phoning it in. I mean, I don't think he's just doing it for a paycheck. And I get definitely the same feeling from Joe Carnahan. He and Frank Grillo are committed to making this film. It's passion. They love it. They love the story. They love the idea. And they really had fun making it. It's sort of an over the top in some ways. It's kind of excessively violent, which I don't have a problem with. It's just it's a funny movie. It's fun. And I would say that it's worth watching. I felt, I kind of like this genre too, like Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. We talked about that before. It's kind of this similar premise, right? Because
I love that movie.
Right. Yeah. He keeps repeating his own death too, but that really works. And that's one of the better Tom Cruise movies I think ever made, and that had a much bigger budget. Yeah. And so I'm kind of all in on the edgy time travel, time loop guy discovers his secret to survival kind of thing.
I never get tired of those kind of stories. So
I don't, and it all comes back to Groundhog Day, which I think Groundhog Day he should have murdered more people because. I'm serious. He could have, and it wouldn't have mattered because the day just repeats itself. He could have said, you're kind of when that guy comes up, Fred, whatever, et cetera, and
there's your different take on a time loop movie. Is someone it's kind of comical like Groundhog Day, and in the end he decides, well, this time through I'm just going to kill as many people as I can because there'll be no consequence, and then it doesn't reset, and so he's on the hook for all these murders.
That would be funny. Yeah, it resets like enough times where he gets comfortable thinking it's not going to happen, and then somehow he changes something, and it doesn't reset, and then he has to spend the rest of the movie trying not to get arrested and put in prison, and also figuring out how he changed it and get back to where he was at the beginning. See, that's clever.
That's a different take on it. That's something new, right?
Now we just gave it away for free. Boy, we're stupid.
Damn it, we need to write it like real quick. So
real quick.
That's our. We can well know that we can prove that was our story idea right now because
That's
this
true.
is recorded.
That's absolutely true. The timestamp on when this episode comes out will tell the tale. So
yes, unless Mike decides to write it while he's editing this.
that's possible too. He's like, "Fuck these guys," especially Chris for coughing so much. I'm going to do this. I wrote this script. Try to prove I
Guys,
didn't.
the episode's going to come out on a little bit late this week, but hey, at the same time, I just sold a script, so
Not related at all. Here's a script.
yes, exactly.
Not that Mike would do that. Mike is a stand-up
No,
guy.
he
would
would
never do that.
He's a professional. And he's our pal.
He's not going to steal.
No,
He's cool.
he would not do that.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike, for being
Talking
honest.
about our producer Mike. He's a good
Yes.
guy. But anyway, all right. So you can find the Flickcast on Stitcher and on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify and wherever you find podcasts. I would say wherever you find quality podcasts, because let's be honest, this is a quality show.
No, not really.
And you can find Joe and I on social media. I am Chris Yu, and he is What Joe Writes.
Yep.
And we have the Patreon, as I said, and that's pretty much it. Is there anything else I have to tell him about? I guess that's it.
No, I think that's it.
You think I'd know what to say by this time, but I still
think we just say goodnight, Gracie. So
good night, Gracie. Because remember, it was Chris and Joe all along. No,
that's right.
sorry. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, all right. So for Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Lelrick. That was the Flickcast. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, everybody.